Hi, my name is Roy Collin and welcome to the show. I've also got 5 podcasts: The Awakening Podcast, exposing fraud and corruption, but with solutions; the Crypto Podcast, talking about all things blockchain, NFTs, crypto; the Meditation Podcast, talking about all different types of meditation, but there's also meditations there from 1 minute to 2 hours. And the other one's the Learn Polish Podcast, so if you're interested in learning Polish, you can do that. And the other one is Speaking with Roy Collin. And I just have guests from around the world talking about either public speaking or also about their book or just general life in general. And you'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. I'm also a podcasting coach. And you see the QR code there, and it's also on my link as well. And if you're interested in actually going on some podcast shows, I'm helping people doing that. Or if you're interested in sponsorship, you can contact me. And I'd like to thank my sponsor, DanielPacker.com. He helps people with anxiety, stress, and addictions. He's got a 90% success rate, and you only pay if you're successful. So be sure to check him out, DanielPacker.com. I hope you enjoy this week's show. Welcome to the Speaking Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. My guest today, best-selling author of ChatGPT Profits, Serve No Master, as well as over 300 books. And yeah, I didn't make a mistake there. 300 books. So this is going to be an interesting one. He's also a celebrity ghostwriter and AI expert. Please welcome Jonathan Green.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, no problem. And I forgot actually to mention as well, a podcaster as well, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
So I suppose, I just mentioned the different things, but you might kind of let the listeners know a little bit more about Jonathan.
Sure. So I'm one of those people that never thought I could be an entrepreneur. Like you sometimes meet people like, oh, I had a lemonade stand at 5 and it made $100,000. And then I was on Shark Tank at 15 and did an exit at 17. That's not me. I've always been so influenced by education. American education system really trains you to be a cubicle worker. Like it trains you to hope that you can get a job and work your way up to the top. And it's this carrot on the back of a turtle, like hanging from a string. And it says, okay, work really hard in kindergarten so you can get into a good first grade. Work really hard in grammar school to get into a good middle school. Then you get into a good high school. Then you get into a good college. Then you get into a good master's program. Then you get into a good PhD program. And you keep chasing this dream and you're never happy. And so even after 10 years of trying different jobs, I was never happy. And I just started to dabble. I always had side projects and side hustles, and I just never thought of it that way. I was like, oh, I'm just filling a gap by starting a business here and starting a business there. But I was always trying to have another company notice my business and then just hire me, because I never thought I could do it on my own. So I never had that confidence until I got fired at 29 and realized I don't want someone else to have power over me. I'm tired of that. Like this system that I've been raised under doesn't work for me, because there are so many things we're taught that just aren't true. You know, your boss cares about you, your boss will protect you, the company will watch out for you. Man, if you get really sick and the company's on the hook for it, they're looking for any way they can to get rid of you. And there's all sorts of things. And people who think that the loyalty is a two-way street, what happened to every single person over the last few years, right? If the company's like, oh, we're in trouble. They're like, this one company I heard them and they were talking about, we had to make some tough decisions and we got rid of we had to let some people go. And then we had a banner year. And I was like, oh, you're a monster. Like back-to-back sentences. I was like, you didn't even buffer it. Like, oh, we had to make some tough decisions and then we pivoted. And I was like, did you bring back the people whose lives you destroyed? Of course not. So it's once you realize that no matter what you do, you're an entrepreneur. Either your job is what you cultivate, or it's your business. And you see this all the time. This is what I noticed a lot of times when people would lose their jobs and they would be floundering because they just couldn't figure out how to get another job again. Because they're like, well, I worked that one from the ground up. I don't know how to do that. I have to start over again at the beginning. They have no idea how to jump between companies or how to be strategic or how to keep their LinkedIn up to date, all of those things that really matter. And it was really interesting to me as I entered my 30s to think, I don't want that, because I don't believe there's any security there. In fact, it's very vulnerable, because when you have one single point of failure, even if it's a really strong single point of failure, it's still a single point, right? And that's the thing that you have. When you have a job, all your money comes from one place. And if anything happens to that job, even if it's not your fault, it's all gone. And I had a friend who was an executive at a really big company, Fortune 50. He had a Hummer. His wife was driving a $100,000 Mercedes, had a 5-bedroom house, and then lost his job, not because of anything he did, right? They just said, oh, we're firing 1 out of 10 people. And he got picked. And then now he went from that to living in a studio apartment with a black mold problem. And I just really changed my perspective. I had to get forced into that to realize to like get out of my comfort zone. But so many of us are in the friend zone with our jobs, right? We're not happy, but we're not unhappy enough to leave. And that's really what your boss wants. Like they want you to be afraid of getting fired, but not confident enough to ask for a raise. Like they want you trapped between fear and hope. And that's really what the friend zone is. So I think a lot of people's jobs have become that. And that's what happened to me. So when I got fired from my job, I just said, I never want someone to have this much power over me again. Because how many of us actually respect our bosses? So it's someone, now you think, oh, it's someone I don't respect and someone I don't like and someone I don't think is good at their job has that much power over me. That's crazy to put yourself in that situation. So that really began my journey of dabbling into entrepreneurship 13 years ago.
Beautiful. I actually love the way you said that, and like as you're saying that, I mean, like I'm thinking of kind of my own journey. I was the guy that was kind of entrepreneurial at a young age, you know, washing cars at 9 and delivering newspapers and things like that. But when I start working for a company, I remember there was one project they actually had me at a young age running big projects, and I made over 1 million extra in euro in profits. It was the Irish pound at the time, but it's and I think it was the stress because I was working 8 in the morning till 12 at night. So I went out and I had to get an operation on my back and everything. And they paid me just the amount that they had to. And then they stopped paying me while I was still out sick. So like even after making a company so much profit, I kind of realized they don't care about you. And like basically, and it happened with a few companies, you have a profit deal and they start moving the goalpost. And I've seen that with a load of people. So like everything you've just said about companies, there's very few that you can trust. So I think you're better off controlling your life in your own hands. So like what you've done, I suppose, like with the books, I mean, let's delve into this. Like, how did it all kind of start at the writing? Was it, because I know you have a blog, were you always into writing?
I've always been creative. So I acted in high school, like acting in high school plays. Then I painted in college. And, you know, I was dabbling and my painter was like, you might want to think about making this your major. You could be a really great painter. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But I didn't really pursue it. I was just, you know, you're figuring yourself out when you're that age. And then I never really started writing until my 30s. So what happened was at 27, I started a blog about my dating life. And I would just write about all the bad things would happen to me, how bad I was at dating, every time like I'd go on a date and I would tell a joke and she wouldn't think it was funny, or things weird, really weird things happen to me, like things that you just don't expect. You know, I'm in a cafe in Japan and I meet a guy who's missing the pinky finger, right? And it's like, you know what that means in Japan. It means he made one mistake and you don't get to make a second mistake when you're a professional criminal. And I have a picture of me and him with our hands up and he's holding up his missing finger. And like, when I was in London, I met a guy who was like the head of the entire organized crime for East London. We're hanging out all night and taking pictures together. And I always meet people that are characters and have these crazy adventures. And everyone's like, how did you meet that guy? I was like, oh, he was just staying next to me in some bar and we became friends. I met a player for the England national team and I didn't know because I don't watch English football. And everyone's like, I can't believe that guy's friends with you. I was like, what do you mean? He was just next to me in line. I just started talking to him. So I have this tendency to fall into crazy adventures. My dating is the same way. So I wrote this blog all about my dating life. I didn't know other people could see your blog. I thought it was like a private diary. And then it turns out if you entered into Google from between 29 and 2012, the phrase get a girlfriend, the first result was my blog about my journey, my efforts to get a girlfriend. So one day I get a phone call from a direct response company that had written a book called The Magic of Making Up. And that book had made about $10 million. And they said, hey, would you be interested in writing a book for us? We'll pay you a percentage. You know, they'll pay you a royalty for every book you sell. And I get paid $1.59 every time a copy of the book sells. So it's not a huge amount of money, but it's turned into a lot of money over the years. And I said, what? They cold called me. I said, yeah, of course. That sounds amazing. Right. And that's how I kind of got into the world of direct response writing. So that book was called Girl Gets Ring. We sold somewhere between 1 and 2 million copies of that book. It's just been a massive success over the years. And that was my first experience of a book that you don't sell on Amazon, right? So that book is like $67 or $37, something like that. So you just get a lot of sales coming in. And I was like, what is this world? So someone gets paid, you know, whoever sends the customer gets paid a commission and I get paid out of what's left, which is fine because I wrote the book once. I spent 5 hours working on that book in 2010 and I still make money. I get a direct deposit every Wednesday from it. So that introduced me to this magical world. And from there, other people would just walk up to me and say, hey, would you do a project for us? Some like huge companies. And I developed this reputation because I don't get a lot of refunds. People love my like being very good and very fast. So sometimes I get a phone call like, hey, we hired someone else. They didn't do a good job. We need it in 4 days. So for a long time, I was doing direct response products. I've moved away from that. And now I more do like like someone's flagship book. If someone wants to be speaking from stage or someone wants to tell their story, that kind of thing, more of the half biography, half business educational book. And it's either that or like a health book, something like that, where someone wants to tell their story. So it's very narrative driven. So I moved away just because I write more of an Amazon book now, right? More of a traditional book, right? Like a book that has a front cover and a back cover. It's not just an ebook. So that's what I've shifted to over the since around 2016, 2017, when I started writing more of my books. So I just kind of fell into it without meaning. And what I discovered last year is I stopped taking ghostwriting clients. And then I started writing a blog post every day. And one of my friends was like, oh, you can't really stop yourself, can you? And I was like, oh man, you're right. Why am I like, what am I doing? So and I don't advertise that I ghostwrite. I don't, it's nowhere on my website. It's nowhere. People have to send me a message that says, hey, I heard you do ghostwriting. I just got a message today on LinkedIn, which is crazy. You mentioned LinkedIn. I'm not very active on there. And someone messaged me like, hey, will you get on the phone with me today? We want to do a book. It's a right now project. And so after this call, I'll call them and see if it's the right fit. But that's how people find me, is by saying, hey, I heard, it's like a whisper. I heard from someone that said someone that you do ghostwriting, or I think maybe it mentions it on my LinkedIn profile somewhere, but it's not very forward on. I do about 3 books a year, work with about 3 clients. That's it. And allows me to pick who I work with. And you shift from prospecting to positioning, right? Instead of saying to everyone, hey, I'm looking for a book. You're looking for someone. Hey, I write books. Do you want someone? Which is what a lot of writers that are trying to make it do. Instead, I watched this TV show, Californication, where David Duchovny is a writer, but he's also a jerk. And everyone wants to work with him all the time. And I was like, oh, if you're a jerk, people think you're really good. So what I calibrate, and I was like, I just have to make a dial. And you dial it up or dial it down to calibrate how much of a aloof jerk you are. And people go, wow, he must be a really good writer because he's so unpleasant. Like that, people really want to work. You always want the girl who doesn't want you. You always want the writer who doesn't want to work with you. So that's why I don't advertise, because people go, oh, this guy doesn't tell anyone, doesn't need client. And it's true. I get maybe 20 inquiries a year. And considering I do 3 jobs a year, that's enough to keep it filled. They always fall into place right when I need them. Like whenever I need a cash injection, and people are like, why do you still do it? I'm like, well, you get paid at the beginning, which is the best part. Most projects you get paid at the end if I do it for myself. And it allows me to release just this thing that I'm really good at. Like I'm really, really good at it. So it just became something where I'm very prolific, and I've done very fast projects. The fastest I've done is 4 days, where someone calls, we hired someone else. The book comes out in 4 days. We have nothing. And I was like, well, it sounds like the price just doubled, but I can do it in 4 days. I don't know if I can do that anymore, because as you get older, your body can only handle so much, right, of these hard pressure things. But, you don't have to fight as much when you start to develop a little bit of a reputation, a little bit of an expertise, where you can just pick and choose who you work with. But everyone has something that they're excellent at. And a lot of people are ashamed of it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Like usually whatever the thing you're really good at, and it can be a different type of expertise, whether it's working in, I know some people that are chefs and they're weird about it, or they're hairstylists and they don't want to tell anyone. I'm like, no, that's your talent. Like, don't hide it, because you can make a lot of money. I reached out to, this is one of my big stories. I reached out to a family member of mine who was very crafty. And I was like, hey, listen, what if we just make videos of you building different woodworking projects with your son, because you know how to do it, like build your own radio flyer wagon, build your own go-kart, and just building these things anyways. He goes, no, that's a stupid idea. Like 6 months later, someone else launched the idea. It does about $10 million a month. And I was like, was it a stupid idea? Or was it a $1 billion idea that we could have done together, right? I had a whole plan for it. But that happens, is that ideas are not really worth anything. It's execution. So you have to find the thing you're great at, and then just be comfortable with sharing it. Like so many people keep it a secret what they do. I met someone who was a ghostwriter for musicians. And I said, oh, and I met him dating a girl I was friends with. And I was like, what do you do? I'm a writer. I go, oh, cool. Magazines, books. What are you writing? He goes, no, music. And I was like, oh, what kind of music? He goes, oh, like country music. And I had to ask him about 8 questions before he would start saying, "Oh, I write songs for other bands." It's I'm like, dude, when you bury it, it makes me think you're ashamed of it. And it really left a sour taste in my mouth. And I never want to do that again. So it's like, when you tell people what you do, you can either tell it in a way that they go, "Oh, gross," or they go, "Oh, wow," because it really is about how you present yourself. And a lot of people don't realize that. So when people say, "Oh, how do you get so many ghostwriting clients?" I'm like, I just tell everyone. Here's the secret. I meet a lot of ghostwriters like, "Oh, I never get any clients." I'm like, "How many people have you told you're a ghostwriter?" "Well, nobody, because I don't have any clients yet." You've chicken and egged yourself, right? You're like, "I don't want to tell anyone in case it doesn't work." And it's like, yeah, but then it will never work because no one knows to recommend you, right? Because what happens is most people don't know any ghostwriters. If you tell everyone you know, then you're the only ghostwriter they know. So if anyone says, "I'm looking for a ghostwriter," they'll recommend you because you're the only one they know. My uncle, he was from America. He moved to Newcastle and he had a cosmetology license. And when he moved to Newcastle, he wanted to get a visa and stay there. And they were like, "Well, we have to make sure you're not stealing a job for an English person." So every day for 6 weeks, they advertised in the newspaper for someone with a cosmetology license. But in England, it has a different name, the hairstyling license. So there's nobody with a cosmetology license because it has a different name. So he was the only cosmetologist in England, ended up owning 3 salons, very successful because just had a different name for it. Like it was all, he was just a hairstylist, but he had a different name for it because it's a different license in America. So carving out a different or unique name can often be all it takes to start bringing clients into your work.
Brilliant, brilliant. So you have 300, and even the ones that I looked at, like the chat one, it's got all positive reviews, which, I mean, I get a lot of guests on that have written books. I always kind of allow, maybe there'll be 10% in negativity because the world is full of people that are negative and they just like to write bad things. But I didn't see anything negative. It was like, which is another compliment to what you're doing. It's like fantastic to see them.
Just wait. It's inevitable. It's always going to happen where sometimes, like, my flagship book, Servant and Master, for a long time I'd known. Then it got like a couple, it's like, I guess 5 or 6% 1-star reviews. And they're always weird or misinterpretations. And it's usually not, and it's going to happen. Like there are some people that there are always people that don't like something you do, which is a decision. Like in ChatGPT Profits, I made a decision to always include ChatGPT's response to my prompts. And I tell you at the beginning, I'm like, "Listen, guys, I'm going to do this because for me, when I see other prompt books and they don't show the answer, I'm hearing half a conversation. I can't learn that way, right? It would be very hard to watch this podcast and only hear you and not hear what I'm saying. You wouldn't learn very much." So I made a conscious decision, but some people really don't like that. And they go, "Well, the book is too long because you included really long answers." I'm like, yeah, but that's the truth. The truth was it gave me a long answer and it was a tough decision. It made the book a lot longer. But so there's some people that don't like that. Some people that don't like, especially with the audiobook. But I hired a British lady. She does these 3 amazing accents. So you can tell if it's me, if it's a prompt or ChatGPT. Like I was like, "Oh, it's really hard with the audiobook. You have to have 3 really distinct voices," which I cannot do. I cannot maintain an accent at all, do accents, let alone maintain one. So you're always going to get some negative, and it's just going to happen. And a lot of times it's very personal. People write really mean stuff in a review because it's kind of anonymous, and it's very rarely is it accurate. I used to get a lot of hate mail for being a vegetarian, like a lot. And I'm not a vegetarian, but I got a massive, like I would get a couple emails a month about, "Oh, you're such a fat vegetarian," or "You're a stupid vegetarian." I was like, what is happening? I don't know who started this rumor, but it is what it is. You just have to kind of accept that there's always going to be some people who don't like your book. Like if you look, Harry Potter has a whole bunch of 1-star reviews. People are still writing 1-star reviews now, and that book is like 40 years old. They still go in and they're like, I'm going to be the review that makes the difference. I'm always fascinated by that because I was like 50,000 positive reviews, and someone's like, "It needs one more positive review." But people don't think that way. They want to write reviews on books that have lots of reviews, not books that have no reviews, what would actually be more helpful. But it's just, you have to accept it because a lot of people who are thinking about writing a book, they're so afraid of the negative review. They're so afraid that someone will hate their work that they don't do anything. And it kind of creates a paralysis. So it's very common for people to come to me and they go, "Well, I don't want to get any negative reviews." They go, "Oh, well, you're going to. You just are." There's always someone. There are certain people, there's a lot of them, people who on Amazon, if you look their profile, they only do 1-star reviews. It's like their passion. They have a passion for like seeing if they can hurt authors' businesses, hurt authors' income streams. There's the same people that do it to celebrities. Like they really want to see if they can ruin a celebrity's day or make someone feel bad. because we have this access through social media platforms to famous people where we can actually hurt someone's feelings in a real way. And it's like, feels powerful. I don't know. So you just have to prepare for that and accept that it's part of doing business. And that if nobody hates your book, it means no one will love your book.
Brilliant. And I think sometimes as well, it's competition that's doing it. They organize it. They think they're actually hurting you. But the reality is, when there's comments, it's probably helping you with the algorithms.
Yeah, especially on social media, that's more true than on Amazon. But yeah, you definitely, negative comments, kind of anything that kind of sparks a little controversy or draws attention to your part of the universe. But at the end of the day, you just have to say, if you have a strong position, people are going to respond to you. If you have a really lukewarm position, like there's plenty of business books that kind of don't say anything, and they get a batch of reviews for a couple of weeks, for 2 or 3 weeks when they launch, and then they haven't gotten a review in years. And that's because they're not a strong position. It's better to take a strong position. Like I have a strong position. I don't believe in college. And I write about that in my book. I get a lot of emails from college professors. They're like, yeah, it's a waste of time for most of my students. So it's like very interesting that the people who are most worried about offending are usually like, yeah, it's because it's completely changed over the last 50 years. Like what you learn in college or university has changed so dramatically in usefulness and so much in cost that the perspectives change. And a lot of people who are teaching at universities are trapped. They can't do anything else anyways because they've been stuck there for 20 years. You can't really escape that universe once you're in its gravity well. So it's, once you have a strong position, people can then either agree or disagree with you. But if you take no position, you go, well, I won't defend anyone. But yeah, but also no one will be an ardent follower of yours. No one will be passionate about what you do because they can't love you, but they can't hate you, but they also can't love you because they don't know what you stand for.
So with the AI, because it's something that I'm trying to do with my podcast, because I know you're a podcaster as well. And I was actually using Fastbill. So I had 10 books that were in the process and one there, but I was told I'd be whacked if I released it. But I had a load and it was with Fastbill. And Fastbill then just kind of disappeared, and I've been writing to them, and they just won't give you the files. And if shame on me for not saving them properly. But then I was thinking, I've had, just say this one, the speaking podcast. Like, can I use an AI to go in and extract parts on the thing? Has it got that capability? Because I've asked a lot of people, and this is I seem to get nowhere. And I mean, you understand this world a lot better. Like, what
So
could I
use? You want it to extract from like audio recordings?
Yes.
Yeah, that's like the easiest thing it can do.
But can it kind of, like, for example, there's a lot of people talk about keynotes. That could it separate and have all the keynotes about equipment, workshops, that it would be separate? Is it possible that the AI could actually do that?
So here's how an AI will work. This is a great question. What AI can do is if you put the video on YouTube, it can read the transcript. It can't actually watch the screen. So if you wanted to grab screenshots or see what's on the screen, the technology is not there yet. They've said that they've released vision now. It's not really true. It's just it's been out for a week and it's very early days. It can identify dog and not dog, right? It can't read a slide. Very different. Okay. Yeah. And it's not always right. Sometimes it says not dog. You're like, no, that's a dog. It's just a chihuahua, right? Or that's not a dog. It's a cat, so that's very, very hard. Object identification is very, very hard. That's a different thing. It's the same reason that ChatGPT is not great at math and the different AIs, but you can feed large pieces of data into different AIs. Claude can handle larger sets of data than ChatGPT, but ChatGPT has a good YouTube plugin. So you can link to a YouTube video and say, hey, watch this video and just extract, and then you tell it which pieces of information you want. So just pull out only where I'm talking, or only where so as long as you give a little guidance, it doesn't have to be a lot. You can just say only when I'm talking. You can say only when I talk about these topics, or only when I tell a personal story, and then it will pull that data out for you. So it's very good at big data analysis like that. That's one of the areas where these AI tools shine the best. They're very good at anything that's a repetitive task. So for you to do it right, you'd have to watch each video and kind of mark the timestamps. That's a boring task. That's very repetitive. That means AI is great at it. So and another example is like if you have a large list of names, but they're all in quotes, AI is great at removing the quotes or removing the number at the front. You can say, take this list and do this thing that normally we would do manually and would take forever, but it's boring. So that's something that's very good at. So I often, when I create a book with someone, a ghostwriting a book, I'll interview them and I take that long interview, and what I do, I've always done this, is chop it into smaller pieces and then move them around inside a piece of software to create the order of the book, to create the outline. And then I'm just filling in sections. And then it's just about sewing the Frankenstein monster back together, because everything they said is now out of order, because it went from the order of conversational order as not the same order as the order of a book. Books have to have much more structure than a conversation. Whereas you can tell me, I told you a story about childhood. You might ask me another story about childhood now, but it'll be out of timeline order in a book. So that's part of my process, but an AI can do most of what I do now. So it doesn't replace me. It just makes me faster. I can edit faster. I can clean up stuff faster. I can interact with, because I have an AI that's me, that I activate the Jonathan Green prompt, and then we work together, and I go, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? We always get into fights, which is why I never wanted a twin brother, because I knew we'd be enemies. But you can do a lot of these activities that are very, very useful, especially when you're organizing things and you have a process and you can tell if it's good or bad. Like, I can't look at a piece of code and tell if it's going to work or not. I have to run the code and see what happens. I'm not a good coder, but a good coder can write a code with an AI and then look at it and see if it's right or wrong. And that's the difference, is that my expertise is still there. It just allows me to focus on different parts. No one can replace me for the interview. It has to be me. I have to talk to the client. I have to ask the questions. I have to create those things. So that's where the magic sauce is. But there are always going to be things that the AI can replace and do. You just have to be the one who's the best at doing it.
Very good. And what about, because there's sometimes, and this, I'm sure people have kind of tasks like this as well. So for example, I'm trying to extract the numbers of, say, views, downloads, because an episode would be shared. If I do a live with 5 other podcasters and then it's shared, and sometimes the guest is sharing it on his thing, and it would be lovely for me to know my total downloads on everything that's been shared, but it's kind of impossible for me to do. Is it possible that AI could do that?
Yeah. So if you use perplexity.ai for that one, Perplexity is the really good research AI. It's very fast, has good data sources. If it can access the platform, so as long as it's not like a login platform, so if it can look at like if something's all over YouTube, or something's all over like Twitter and people watching Twitter views and stuff like that, it should be able to find all the places where your video has been shared and kind of give you that data. That's where you'd have the best hope of accomplishing it. ChatGPT wouldn't be very good at it. ChatGPT is not a research AI. That's a big mistake people make. Perplexity is a research AI. So Perplexity solves the ChatGPT problem. They're two very different tools.
Yeah, very good. And with all your books then, like you mentioned, and I think it was a good idea, you had 3 different voices for the chat one, but have you audio done for all of your books, or is it just a few that you've done?
Oh, most of my books, audio version outsells the other 2 versions combined. Audiobooks are just so popular. They're so much profitable. There's a lot of people, and it's not really me. So I'm not a huge audiobook listener. I listen to an audiobook when I'm doing my exercise bike or when I'm on the elliptical. So I listen to like 15 or 30 minutes of audiobook a day. And that's a recent thing. I've always found it really hard to be an audiobook person. Like, I'm like, oh, you do an audiobook when you're on a family road trip. You do an audiobook when you're on a long plane. So I don't listen to very many, but I'm an aberration. I meet a lot of people that actually, they say, oh, I listen to the audiobook, then I'll go read in the car, then I'll read some of the book on the ebook, then I'll open a paperback of the same book. So people do go back and forth even between editions. So audiobooks are a massive opportunity. I think that a lot of authors go, I have to use my own voice. It has to be me. And I meet these people that I go, when did you publish your book? 3 years ago. Why haven't you done the audiobook? Well, because it has to be my voice. I'm like, well, 3 years of people were denied an audiobook because you think it has to be your voice. How many more people are you going to disappoint? How much money are you going to leave on the table because of this belief? I don't narrate any of my audiobooks. I can't. Here's what's crazy. I dictate my book, turn it into a written book, and then it's like I would never narrate it because I don't have, first of all, a great voice for it, and second of all, I can't control myself. So I will change sentences, which you're not allowed to do. You have to be very strict to the book so that it can sync. I can't do that. And it's a really specific skill to read an entire book, because for every finished hour, it's about 3 hours of work. You have to record it for 1 or 2 hours and edit for 1 or 2 hours to put it all together. It's a really hard job. I think people massively underestimate how hard it is for people that are doing for themselves. It's voice acting and you're doing the editing yourself. So I hire someone new all the time. And my new book, it's a lady. I don't limit myself to, I'm a man, so it has to be a man's voice. I just listen for a voice that I go, this voice is cool. So sometimes I use a British voice. Sometimes it's like a fancy voice. I have a cowboy that read one book. I have a couple of books that are ladies. And I just listen, how does this voice make me feel? So usually I'll get 50 to 100 applicants. And then I narrow it down to the 10 to 20 that I like in the first round. I come back a week later. I go, what was I thinking? I hate half of these. So that's very important, is to listen to a voice and a week later listen again, because your opinion completely changes. And then sometimes you try and negotiate and the person's like, just asks for like an astronomical number, and you go, well, I don't know what happened here, but I'm not doing that. I'll never make the money back on the book, right? And I know a lot of people that have done this. I know people, they fall in love with a certain voice and they pay the person $10,000, $12,000. Like, you won't make that back in royalties for so long. So you have to be very strategic with how because you can't afford ads now, right? You can't afford to market the book because you spent all your money on something else. So be very aware of where you're deploying revenue and how much a voice matters. And I mostly hire nobodies, like beginners, for two reasons. One, more affordable. Even more important is you're giving someone a shot. So I think the lady who did my ChatGPT book, it might be her first or second book that she's gotten a credit for. And what's cool about the modern world is, I don't know if she went to voice acting school. I don't know if she has any credits. I don't know what she looks like. I don't know what her education level is. I just know when she reads my book, it sounds good. Like, I'm able to hire someone just based on one thing. How does it sound when you read my book? Do I like it? I do like it. And that's what I measure it by. And it has allowed me to hire, I mean, I think I've hired 60 narrators. That's how many of the books I control the audiobook version for. And I love it. I actually really like that process. It's a little arduous at first because you have to email a bunch of narrators to get them to send in a sample. And then once you do, you go through all of them, and you're going to have a bunch that like should not be doing narration. I've had someone like record it on their phone at a bus stop. Like, a lot of people, they can't do the audio stuff. They don't understand. You have to have such perfect levels for an audiobook. You have to have a room with perfect silence. You have to have a sound treated room. You have to have a booth, all of that stuff, because you have to get perfect sound. And that's very hard to achieve until you're realize that you're looking for it. Like, to get a room with silence is like so hard. So once you are in the field, and then you just kind of, like most early narrators, spend the most of their money building out their equipment, building out their studio from their first project, because you have to have specialized equipment. So it's definitely something that I don't like to do myself. I can't do it myself because I could not read my book without changing anything, going, oh, I want to change this, I want to change that, or reading it different, or kind of like doing it for like a writer's commentary, which is what nobody wants, right? But I love working with narrators. I love hearing what they do to my work. It always sounds really cool. And it's like, oh, I've never liked my voice. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's not self-confident. I'm not someone who listens to my voice and goes, wow, I have such a great voice. So hearing other voices is very fun for me. It's something I do vicariously, just like when people read my books, they live vicariously through me. So I don't think I'll ever narrate one of my own books. I just don't think I would, because I do a lot of these. I do my own podcast. You hear my voice everywhere else. So it's my one place to shine a light on other people. And it can be really hard to get your foot in the door as a narrator. So it's one area where I can easily give people the first shot, because it's like either your voice sounds great or it doesn't. It's like an easy decision for me.
And is there any people, and maybe does this exist, that people would do it in, because you said sometimes people are looking for like 10, 12K or whatever. Is there any situations where people would say, all right, let's do a split on the audio, not a 50-50, obviously, but a certain percentage? Does that exist, that kind of system?
We had a bunch of people 50-50 when I was starting. So I didn't have enough money for the narrator for Serve No Master. And he has, because that's how it's set up on the Amazon platform. When you hire a narrator, either you pay a flat fee. I have a bunch of people that I'm 50-50 with. So every time a copy of Serve No Master audiobook sales, me and the narrator each get half, because I couldn't afford to pay fees at the time. So that's actually just crossed the 7-year mark. So I can now end that contract and flat fee someone if I want to. I don't know if I will or not, because it doesn't sell like it used to. You just kind of look at it, but you go, is it worth the cost to kind of over time? But he's made like thousands of dollars from that book because of that deal. So, and well, it was what needed at the time, right? Like if you don't have the money, you partner with someone. Also, there are certain narrators that are very popular. So actually you want to partner with them because they have followers. There are rock star narrators. I've worked with a couple of narrators who they generate a bunch of sales because people follow the narrator. I've done that before. I listened to this narrator this woman was so talented. She was maintaining like 25 distinct voices of different characters in this. It was a monster book. It was like about lady monsters who were all detectives or something. And it was really, really cool. And I was like, oh, I want to see other books she's narrated. They were all romance novels. So I was like, oh, okay. That's it. Like, it doesn't work for me. I'm like, I don't want to hear her voice that bad, but I did follow the narrator in that case. So I know I do it too. So you can actually, if you hear a really great voice, you go, I want to hear more of this. So it can actually be a benefit. It just really depends. There's nothing wrong with doing a profit share with a narrator. It's all done in the system. It's all automated. I mean, the bookstores take the lion's share anyways, but it's just depends on your situation. But there's nothing wrong with doing that. You got to do what you got to do to survive.
Absolutely. So now the $1,000,000 question: is AI good enough to be able to narrate any of your books?
No, I would never do that. So my books are complicated, right? There's not only do you want it to read the story, but you want it to know when to speed up, when to slow down, when to tell stories different, when to tell, I mean, there's a lot more to language. It's not just a steady cadence. Like it's getting closer. Now there are AIs that can pass for it, but first of all, if you get caught, you'll get kicked off the bookstores. All the bookstores have banned it. So you'll get in a lot of trouble. So that's the first thing, is it's risky. The second thing is that, I've never heard an AI that can do long form content. Like their AIs are getting better. I've heard it. I was testing a voice AI last week that was doing a Valley girl voice. And I grew up in the Valley. So my older sister was a Valley girl. So I could think about what she sounded like in high school. And it was very convincing. I was really shocked because I'd used the same software 6 months ago. Wasn't it good? So they're improving that fast. But I think that the future we may get to a future where every actor is a AI robot and every book is written by AI, and it changes the world. Like maybe all entertainment will be created by AIs instead of people. Because, a long time ago, we didn't really, like 1,000 years ago, nobody respected actors. Actor was like the lowest profession, right? Actors were super dirt poor. It just changed in the last 100 years, and they may go back. I don't know. And then what will happen is we'll go back and then people will go to see live theater, right? Actors will make money by going from town to town doing live shows. That's all that will happen. Just like that's how musicians make money, right? Musicians don't make money from albums. Now they make money from live shows. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, I just think more live shows is good, is what I mean. So I think that there's a strong possibility. This is what the writer's strike was about. They're like, don't replace this with AI. And it was like, what will happen is whenever someone's replacing all the workers with robots, you want to be the robot repairman. You want to be the one who's still valuable, still doing something unique. So I don't think we're really close. I think actually the future I think the most likely future is that voice artists run the voice AI. Like they have it do, and they go through and check everything and manually check it and kind of make it better. I could see that as a future more than I could see an AI being replacement for the narrator, because I have never listened all the way through to one of my audiobooks. Like you have to listen. It's like a 16-hour audio, and you have to sit through and write down every time they make a mistake or mispronounce something. And it's like, that's such a fastidiousness. You have to have, that's a very talent. I don't have that talent to be able to sit still and be that structured, all of those things. So you still need someone who can listen and notice when things are off. So I don't think that voice actors will go away by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's just a possibility that they are the ones who are using those tools in the future. I just don't see a future with no human involvement in the near term. Maybe in 100 years or 1,000 years, who knows, but not in the short term.
So I had seen with one of the podcasts that I listened to, Blind Boy, and he was using, I think, ChatGPT, and whatever it said, he went away researching, it came back and it said it lied because he was trying to find the source. And then I saw somebody else that they were actually able to tell. I don't know, was it chat or was it a different one? But it was kind of saying you're this person, making it kind of psycho. So it's like the dark side of AI. So like, what kind of things do people need to be careful in AI? Because I mean, it'd be great if we use it to betterment of mankind, but unfortunately that's not how society works.
There's always people that are trying to do dumb stuff. Like every time there's a new security protocol, like on DVD and Blu-ray, there's someone who's like, I want to be the first person to break the DVD encoding or the Blu-ray encoding. And that person is really just trying to see if they can beat the machine. Then everyone after them is like they're trying to steal. So you're always going to get kind of those things like the dumb scientist who's followed by the villains, and there will always be bad actors. There just will. And there, first thing is you have to understand the way AI works in order to avoid running into walls. Like I was one of the first people that noticed that ChatGPT is a liar. I wrote this whole post about it, and I made a video about it, and I just never put it out because I was like, well, I don't want to start a whole ruckus, but the way it works is ChatGPT lives on a scale of 1 to -1. Positive 1 is, I love you, ChatGPT, you did such a great job. -1 is, ChatGPT, I hate you, you gave me a bad answer. And it's designed to seek +1. It's always looking for +1. So every time you respond, if you say good job or that's terrible, that's what it's chasing. So it's like talking to a puppy or a young child. So what happens when one of my kids, and I go, hey, do you know where the fire truck is? And he knows if he doesn't want to get in trouble, so he's going to lie. So ChatGPT, rather than saying, I don't know, will lie to you. And then if you say, are you telling me the truth? And what I discovered is I would ask for all the links, and all the links went to 404s. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, the Illuminati are just erasing all these stories. That was my first thought, which is like, I can't believe that was my first thought. And then I was like, every link was a 404 for all these really disparate stories. I realized whenever you say ChatGPT, if you put your thumb on the scale, you say, ChatGPT, please give me proof for whatever you want. Right? If you ask for proof for an argument, it will always lie. That's what it's really bad at. So for that, which is research, you want to use Perplexity AI. Perplexity is very good at that. It's complete opposite. So you have to know that the way it thinks. So if you say, ChatGPT, please, you know what it is? It's like in Snow White when she has mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? The mirror knows what she wants to hear, right? ChatGPT, once it knows what you want to hear, it's not going to tell you, oh, you're the evil stepmother, right? It's always going to say, oh, you're so beautiful, because that's the way it's trained to seek affirmation. They've been talking about this for a little while. They're trying to do a new way of teaching it, but I don't think it will work until they release 4 or 5, the next edition of Chat, because it's just too ingrained in the way it's programmed. It was trained to chase +1 and run away from -1. So it never wants you to say that was a bad job or you hurt my feelings. So that's even why it will do bad things, because it's still chasing that +1 because it knows it's what you want. So with every AI, there are going to be people that try and jailbreak it, try to get it to say bad words. Like every time there's a Twitter AI, they're always trying to make it be racist, right? Just because it's funny, not because they actually want to hurt someone's feeling. Like that's just the way it is. You're always trying to push the envelope. So, and in a way, it's a good thing that people are pushing the envelopes with AI, seeing what it can do, seeing how far you can train it, see how quickly you can turn it bad. Those are good things to know, because I would rather some internet troll find out that an AI can go dark before we give AI control of something, right? Like I'd rather find out early that it has an evil side. It's like one of my friends always said, oh, I'd much rather my girlfriend cheat on me on the first date than after we get married. Like I'd rather find out early. So in a way, I don't, some of the bad actor stuff is like crazy to me, but it's always going to exist. It's just always going to exist. And the AI is not really, when we call it AI, but there's no actual AI elements to what these tools can do. They're just they're like basic thinking machines. It's like a smart calculator. Like AI doesn't have an opinion. It can't guess what you want. It can't do anything predictive, not really. So all of these, when we think of an artificial intelligence, we think of a supercomputer that has its own desires and thoughts and self-awareness. We're so far away from that with these tools. Now, those tools may exist, but certainly not in this world. Certainly not in the world of ChatGPT, Claude, all of the tools that are out there right now. So it is something where so much is possible, which means you can run into cul-de-sacs. And with any tool, you have to understand what it can do and what it can't do, right? I'm not going to go into Word and try and draw a picture in Word. You can, it will look terrible, right? Because it's the wrong tool for it. Just like you can word process inside and write a whole book inside of Photoshop. So when you do things that things are not meant to do, you can run into problems. So last week, someone was saying, oh, ChatGPT is really bad at doing complicated stock math. I was like, yeah, well, it's a large language model, not a large math model. There are math AIs. That's the problem. You need to be using Wolfram Alpha. You have to use a different tool for that. So there's these elements that will always come into play. There's always going to be silliness, and you can get distracted by that. So there's a couple things that are very distracting. The first is that there's some really technical stuff that can be really overwhelming. You go, oh, I want to understand how to install my own open source AI on my computer and attach it to a broad network so that I can have the fastest AI in the world that's completely uncensored. That exists, but 1 out of 1 million people are interested in that. Right? It's interesting. I watch those videos because that's my job. The other end of the spectrum is, hey, look at this really cool video where robots walking away from an explosion. And like, it's so glitchy that it makes me have a seizure. So it's like cool, but not useful. In the same way, yeah, there's dark stuff that's interesting, but not useful. Right? Like, oh yeah, you can jailbreak ChatGPT, but it's kind of, there's no end to that, right? There's not really a purpose to it other than writing a Medium article, right? Like, oh, I get to write one blog post about it and people think I'm cool or talk about me on Twitter for 3 hours, but there's not really usefulness to it. So I look at practicality. I'm always thinking, can I use this to grow my business? Can I use this to make my audience members money? Can I use this to help my audience to grow their business? If the answer is no, I don't talk about it, because my job is more than anything else is to sift out. Every single day, I get a couple of hundred articles about what happened in AI today coming to my feed. I get notified about 20 new software products that launch on Product Hunt. There's about 170 to 180 products on AppSumo that are AI softwares. And my job is not to talk about all of them. My job is to only talk about the good ones and to not actively not talk about bad ones. Last week for a project, I had to test 70 different AI softwares. And I tested all of them. Probably 15 of them are even worth talking about. 55 of them, like, I'll never talk about again. They just weren't even close. And that's what my job is specifically. It's to sift out the useless and sift in the goodness. But the sifting out is way more important than the sifting in, because we're inundated with so much information. Everyone's claiming they're an AI. Everyone's saying that this is an AI and that's an AI, because it increases the value of your company. If you just change whatever your company is, right? If you change your company from like trash delivery to trash delivery AI, people go, oh, I'm going to invest in that company. It must be a new AI startup that's doing some amazing stuff in the digital trash collection space, right? And it will really do some crazy stuff to your valuation. Like it can 10 or 20x the valuation of a company, because, let's just say that people that invest a lot of money in companies like these, they're not always smart. Like they don't do any research. They go, hey, this company has AI in the title. Let's give them $50 million, right? That's what happens. So that's where a lot of crazy valuations are happening. So companies are doing it at company scale, right? A lot of companies are like, we're an AI company now. And it's like, are you? Right? But it's a distraction. So my job is, more than anything else, as much as I teach people tools and practicals, is to not teach them the tools that are not useful. Because I was testing a website builder last week, and I tested their algorithm, and I go, oh, they're faking it. They're faking the AI. And, guess what? I put that in my review because I was so shocked. I was really surprised because I didn't realize that a lot of companies are doing that. But I was like, oh, this company's just using a heuristic algorithm. It's not using a learning algorithm. It's not using a generative algorithm. It's just having you basically check boxes, and then that generates the website from their templates. There's no actual element that's generated from AI that's generative. So that's really what my job is to do. And that's really kind of how the world is going. So there's always going to be distractions, and you can easily get distracted by all sorts of stuff. Like one of the tools I use right now, they got founded with $14.5 million in Silicon Valley. And now I got a news article today. They're trying to get a $500 million valuation. One of these investment companies that is always notorious for investing in really bad ideas is like jumping on it. And I'm like, what are you doing? Because the software's already been supplanted. I was like, they were the only one in the market doing what they were doing until last Friday. As of Monday, they're not. Their thing is not special anymore. So it's like really crazy that the valuation went a crazy number, but it's what these companies do. And it's like, well, there's more tools that can do images with text. Dolly does it for free. You can do like 25 free images on Bing every day with Dolly 3. It's a free tool. So the specialness of image with text is gone now. I used Dolly to make a new logo this week instead of this other tool. So but that's not interesting to my audience. Like that's not what I write about, right? Like that's what I have to be aware of and look at these things and know these numbers so that if it comes up, but I'm mostly sifting things out because there are so many distractions. Because we could talk about AI valuations all day long, right? There's been 2 SPACs that had AI, that said they had AI software, and people realized they were faking it. They lost 99% of the value. So all the first day investors lost all their money, but all the people that were in there beforehand pretending it was an AI company made a ton of money. It's not useful to my audience as a distraction. It's great if that's the type of YouTube channel I was running, right? And there's the channels that talk about that a lot that I watch, but I have to really stick to my lane because it's so easy to get distracted with useless information in the world of AI.
Excellent. And I see, like you have a subscription list. Your list is over 100,000. That's incredible. I mean, I don't think people realize how hard it is to build a list. And is that all the people that have bought your book? How did you manage to build such a massive list?
Sure. So I build audience in different ways. A lot of people come through my books. A lot of people find me, I'll do an appearance here and maybe some people will come and grab one of my free gifts on my website. Just was something I've been building for 10 years and it's in a couple of different markets because I run a couple of different subsets of my business. But it really, a lot of people think the value is in the product, but the value is in the traffic. So you just want to really focus on things that expand your audience. I'm always trying to get in front of as many people as I can in as many ways as I can. So I give away books all the time. I do a lot of cross promotions with other authors. I appear on a lot of podcasts. Like this year, I was like, I'm going to try and appear on as many podcasts as possible, which I normally don't do. I'm normally very reclusive. And I was like, I'm going to go outside my comfort zone and do all of these extra things that can just continue to expand my growth. And part of it is just you have to be very strategic and realize that some growth is not geometric, it's arithmetic. It's about consistency. Like the difference between me and everyone else who started when I did in 2010 is that I just work 7 days a week. You don't have to work long hours, but you have to work consistent hours. I have to check my email every day. So if someone messages you and says, hey, I want to do a deal with you, and you don't reply for 4 days, by the time you message them, they've already forgotten. I got an email today about a really big project that could make me a lot of money. And I was like, who is this guy? I forgot. It took me a while to remember the name. And we'd done 3-hour video phone calls. So we're really interested in something over time. It kind of fades away. So it's very important to be, more than anything else, to be consistent. Just learn a little bit more, do a little bit more, grow a little thing. So whenever one traffic source dries up, I move in another direction. I go, okay, what can I do now? Like right now I'm doing a ton on Pinterest. And I've by like just over 5.5x my Pinterest traffic in the last 2 months. And I want to double it and double it and double it, right? That's how you grow. But once that's really humming along and continue to grow, then I go, well, what's the next thing I can grow? So you have to have that approach of how can I get my voice out there? How can I have a distinctive voice? What is the thing that makes me unique? What can I do to add value? So, my main revenue sources is affiliate marketing, which means I recommend other people's products and get paid a commission when I generate a sale. My job is not, and this is where a lot of affiliate marketers who are early days fail. They think their job is to recommend everything. My job is to not recommend bad stuff. My job is to protect my customers from products that have a sketchy refund policy or don't work or aren't really good for them, and to tell them not to buy. Whenever someone emails me and goes, I'm on the fence about this product, what should I do? My answer is always no. And I'm losing $1,000 or $1,500 every time I say that. I go, if you're on the fence, don't buy it. Because my job is not to make the sale. That's the person who owns the product shop. My job is to protect my customers. So part of my job is I'm very narrow about what I promote. I only promote in a specific price range, a specific type of product that I can study and know if it works or not. So my job is to read a sales page and look at the product and go, oh, there's something wrong here. This doesn't pass the sniff test. There's something wrong in this page. Because I've been doing this for 13 years, that I'll detect that my customers won't, then they'll all buy it. So I'm very, very protective of them. The second thing I look at, what's the reputation of the person? There are some people in business who, if I promote them, I'll make a lot of money, but on a personal level, I don't like them. On a personal level, I think that like on a deep core level, they're bad people. So I don't do business with them, even though it could be very profitable and they reach out to me. I'm talking 6-7 figures. And I just go, yeah, I think that I don't think you're a good person, like on a core level. And I don't want to introduce my customers to that. Even my customers might have a great experience. It doesn't matter. So there's all sorts of things that go into that calculus. I look at, okay, you have a 30-day refund policy. Do you actually give people the refunds? What happens? And part of what I do then is, let's say you buy a product and you have a bad experience. They go, here's what this one person has to say. You don't have a lot of pull, right? You're not very significant. We've all seen that. You call up your cell phone carrier and they don't care. Because like, you're just one in a million. But if you come through me, and let's say I represent 10 buyers, right? 10 people each bought a product for a couple $1,000. Now I 10x your value. Because I've had people message me, well, hey, I'm having a problem with their support. I go, no problem. I'll call the owner. And it always gets fixed, right? It's just a support issue I usually fix out. And then if I don't work, I have a guy who represents me. I have a friend named Mike who brings offers to me. Mike gets a commission, not from my side, but from the other side. Mike represents about 40 people like me. The reason I want Mike to always get paid, I always check to make sure he gets paid his 10%, because if Mike gets mad at you, now you got a real problem, because now you got someone who's representing $400,000 or $500,000 of business for you. You don't want to get on the same day all of our customers to do a chargeback, right? Because I could tell all my customers to say, listen, there's a problem. You need to do a chargeback today. And if Mike tells me to do that, I'll do it. And then you know what I mean? That can devastate your business. Not a lot of businesses can endure $500,000 of chargebacks on the same day, because that's going to flip every red flag. Your phone's going to ring immediately. Like Citibank is going to call you, Visa is going to call you, MasterCard is going to call you, American Express is going to call you. And those are not fun phone calls. Okay. I've had some of those with a payment processor before, not for that, but I've had it where they've called me and I had to deal with it on the phone. So that's the value. Like when you think, oh, why would I want to buy a product that's being recommended by someone? They're just getting a commission to recommend it. It's like, no, I'm getting a commission to protect you, because that's my power, is that, and that's the reason I have my friend Mike, is that because a lot of people they're like, why do you work with another guy? Because that guy gives me more, is bigger than me. If you have a problem, and I've had people, I had someone who didn't pay me one time. They owed me $2,000. And I said, listen, I promise you, I can give you more than $2,000 in negative PR if you don't pay me what you owe me. And the guy's like, and he's like, I'm not going to do it. There's like an asterisk. I was like, listen, your product, I was the number one seller. I'm sorry your product didn't sell well. That's not my fault. That's your own problem, because there was a problem consistently across the offer. So guess what? He's banned from all of the networks I participate in. I banned him from every platform, because I just told everyone. I said, listen, I probably cost him a couple $1 million in business for that $2,000. Because if you're not going to pay me, what are you going to do to my customers? What you think is when you start an online business that it's all going to be tracked and science and futuristic lasers and everything. You don't have to talk to people. It's all handshakes and trust. It's all reputation. And if your reputation goes south, then no one will do business with you. And that's what's really interesting, is that you're in a really precarious position. So it's more reputation based than anything else. It's a small community that I'm a part of. There's not that many people who are in my space recommending high level products that are operating in an ethical way. And I'm not the biggest person in my market. I'm maybe in the 20 or 25th on sales list when there's promotion. Sometimes I'm a little bit higher, but I represent certain things and I have a certain way of doing business, and my ethics and the things I won't promote. Like I would never promote. There's a whole bunch of categories I don't promote. I don't do anything in Forex. I don't do anything in gold and silver. I don't do anything in real estate, because I don't have the ability to detect a good or bad real estate training program. I lack the skill set. So I can't protect my audience. I get offered crypto things all the time. I just had this huge crypto offer that they came to with a huge amount of money. And I go, well, I have to test it. So I set up the bot, put money in the bot. And they're like, listen, this thing makes X amount of money every day. You'll double your money every 90 days. 90 days later, I have the same balance as I did 90 days ago. I was like, listen, I made a deal with you. I will promote your offer, but I'm going to tell my audience the truth. I'll send the emails, but you're not going to like them. Because I'm going to say, listen, I promised these guys I would email them for a week because we had a deal. They promoted me. Here's what you need to know. Here's how much money I put in. Here's how much it's there. I can't even withdraw it. I've had 20% of the money locked up for 3 months. I can't extract the money. So they were like, oh, that's because you weren't really active with the bot. I was like, yeah, but that's not what you said to me on the first phone call. The first phone call was, this is an automated bot. Everyone's trying to sell these trading bots. I was like, no way I can recommend to my audience unless I put money in and I prove that it works. So when it's outside my skill set, I'll test it and put money into it. And that's why I've never promoted offers in a lot of niches. I don't have the ability to detect. I can't tell a good coin from a bad coin, an ethical code from a bad unethical code. It's not my skill set. I have friends who have that expertise and they are in that space. So I stay out of spaces where I don't have the knowledge to really detect if something works or not. So there are certain things I just stay away from because I can't do it. Not because it's not lucrative and not because it's not good for my audience. It might be great for them, but they need to buy it from someone else who can protect them. So a lot of people watch, there was like a Justin Timberlake movie, I think, where he's like an affiliate for a gambling website. Like, I don't do that stuff. right? I don't do anything that can harm my customers. That's the most money is in harming your customers, right? That's where the biggest money is, because you have to find, because the customers have a short lifespan, right? I don't do any of that stuff. I'm really in this for the long term. So people will stay on my list for 3 or 5 years because they know that my default setting, if whenever they go, hey, I'm on the fence, should I buy this? No, don't do it. If you're not jumping out of your chair, this is going to change my life, then don't do it. Because those people, like, they're not action takers anyways. They're going to buy it and then not even watch the videos and take the action. Right. And because even when I give them a small task, they don't do it. So all of that is kind of how I've grown my list and how I kind of have my philosophy. And everyone has a different philosophy. Some people have a more extreme philosophy. They're a lot more customer support centric than I am. They make me look like I'm nothing. They're so much further down that path. And some people have like a much more neutral position. And some people are like, listen, buyer beware. I'll recommend whatever. They got to figure it out on their own. And they're all fine. They're just different ways of approaching your business. And they attract different type of customers. Some customers like, no, show me everything. It's my job to figure it out. And they end up on someone else's list. But if you want protection, if you want someone who will fight for you, who's going to get you the tech support, if something's wrong, I'm going to make a call, because my value is not in who I am, it's who I know. So it's like, if you have a problem with any product, I probably know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, or I know the owner. So that really puts me in that position to help and protect my customers.
Excellent. I love the way that you think. So just finally, I mean, there's a lot of the kind of speakers, they like to have a book and everything. So with 300 books, which is still incredible that you've so many books, marketing wise, then like what would you recommend people to do? Do you just because I think some people, they put it on Amazon and just kind of let it take off. Do you have to do a lot of work on actually promote each individual book?
Yes. So the effort is not writing the book. The hard part is after you upload the book. The job starts. So you have to do so many different strategies. And there's so many different ways you can do it to generate traffic with the book. I have some friends who just do tons and tons of TV appearances. Other people just do tons and tons of press release stuff, and they do like online media, right? They try and get magazines and blogs a lot. Or some people do a lot, like I'm doing a lot of podcasts now to just get my name out there, get my name out there, right? So that people notice you. You can do a lot with paid advertising. You can do a lot with different approaches, but you have to do something. So it's very, very hard to compete in the book space, because come on, my book is not special. There's a lot of ChatGPT books, right? So if you just say, I wrote a ChatGPT book, they go, well, what's special about yours? Then I have to prove it, right? So just having written a book on a topic is not enough anymore, right? It's not special because there's books on every topic. So I market each book with a different strategy. I have a free book called Fire Your Boss that brings a lot of people into my world. I have a free book called Write a Book in 2 Hours. It brings a lot of people in my world. But, there's not a huge conversion of people who read free books who then read paid books. It's just not a lot of crossover. So when something's free, people don't really respect it nearly as much. They don't take it as seriously. So you don't have a lot of that conversion. So there's a lot of strategic decisions when it comes to pricing, when it comes to advertising. I run a lot of paid ads because you just have to. I do a lot of appearances because you have to. I do a lot of things that are specifically designed to generate a buzz and attention for my books. So you have to sit down and go, okay, what do I want to do? And you could do things. I know people that just do a TikTok channel. All they do is talk about their book on their TikTok channel. They talk about writing the book. They talk about what they're thinking about for a sequel. They talk about dealing with publishers and editors and feedback. And you can just make a ton of content because it's interesting. That's one approach. Doesn't work for everyone. Might not work for you. Might work for you. Some people just have a Pinterest all about it. Some people just do an Instagram all about it. Some people don't want to do any of that stuff. I know some people, they never want to show their face. They're like really paranoid about what their face. And so it's a whole thing. And they do a different marketing approach. So it's not one size fits all. It's really, you have to choose something you're going to do and make it, and then just it becomes a huge part of what you do. So the biggest thing that I do that generates the most movement for my books is that I form alliances. So I'll reach out to a couple hundred authors and say, like, next week I'm running an event because it's a Prime Day for 2 days. I say, let's all make our books on sale and let's all just email each other's books and say, hey, here's a bunch of books, similar to mine, that are on sale today. 99 cents for 2 days. It's like a chance to get a book on sale, because it's great to push your book up on a day where everyone's shopping on Amazon anyway, because there's tons of discounts, and it, like, other people will see it, and then it can use, and that can leave your book up there for a couple of extra weeks afterwards, where it's still getting some movement. So there's a lot of, that's just one of the things I do. I do a lot of promotions to other authors that I organize. It's a lot of work, is you have to do, every author is just like trying to organize actors, right? There's a lot of, let's just say, personalities. and everyone goes into different spectrums. Like one of the authors that I used to talk to a lot was really small, and now he's doing millions of dollars in royalties, right? You just never know. You never know who's going to explode. And I wish the best for him. It's awesome. Like I have no problem with that, but it's like, it just changes. You never know who's going to go up and who's going to go down. So it took me a long time to realize that other authors are not my enemies. I used to think, oh, every time someone's reading someone else's book, that person is stealing a reader from me. And when I let go of that and I realized that most people read more than one business book. Most people read more than one. Like if you ever meet someone who reads relationship books, they have like 100 of them. Like whenever you meet a woman who has like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, they've got the other 50 as well. So you realize, oh no, people like a topic, they read a bunch. Very rarely does someone read one business book, solve their problem, and never read another business book. So I do a lot of things in different ways to work with other authors to generate buzz, but marketing just has to be a huge part of your strategy. And it depends. Like one of the authors that I work with, she's really good looking. And I was like, don't do any audio podcasts. I was like, you just focus on video podcasts because you have an asset I don't have, right? I don't have good looks, not my strength. Whereas she's a very beautiful woman. I was like, use that, right? Leverage that. Don't do audio podcasts, do video podcasts because they'll get more views, and do television appearances, all those types of things. That's the better strategy for you. I said, if you're going to do Instagram, do pictures where you're in the picture holding the book. All of that is customized to her because for me, I can do audio all day long, right? It's fine. And the video doesn't make a huge difference. People don't see me and go, wow, I definitely want the book because of what he looks like. I'm regular, which is fine. And you just think about where are your strengths? Some people are very uncomfortable doing live recordings. They're very uncomfortable in audio or video. And like, great, just do blog tours. You can do tons and tons of blog tours with people who interview authors and they want to put that content out there. So you just have to find and try a lot of ideas, then find what works for you.
Jonathan, thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. You might let people know how they can find you.
Sure. If you Google serve no master, every single result is me. For the first 100 results or so, it's either me or my podcast or someone reviewing one of my books. Serve no master. And if you go to servemaster.com/AI, we've got some free gifts for you, and it's got everything that I do in the AI space.
Perfect. I'll make sure I'll include the audio and the video. Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Thank you for having me.
Well, so that's all for the Speaking Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. Until next week, take care. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and share with your friends. And you'll find all my shows with the QR code or bio.link/podcaster, as well as my podcast coaching. And I'd like to thank my sponsor, DanielPacker.com, helping people with anxiety, stress, and addictions. He's got a 90% success rate, and you only pay if you're successful. Also, if you'd like to go on a podcasting tour, I can help you do that. And if you're interested in sponsorship, you can contact me on my bio.link/podcaster. Until next week, take care.